Hey everybody, this is Laurie Meyer from stampedgreetings.com, and you are now part of a stamp club meeting. We would love to have you join us if you would like, and you can do that by simply sending me an email, and you can find that on my website, which is stampedgreetings.com, and I would love to have you be part of this. Today we are making a very fun fold. It is very easy. I'm going to move the background piece out of the way so you can see it a little bit better. And I do need to give credit to the original idea, to Connie Stewart. I did modify a couple of things, but this is what I'm calling a Z-fold tower fun fold card. And it folds down to a regular A2 size. So it will get into an envelope because when you fold it down, it's 4¼ by 5½. But what's really kind of fun is it opens and it will stand. And when you're looking at it from the side, it looks like that. So it's really a very fun design to know how to make. And I promise you, it is very simple. I'm going to walk you through how to cut out the base. There are two pieces to the base, the back part, and then the front, which really is three pieces. And we're going to make both of the front and the back out of the same piece of regular old cardstock. I'm going to use a piece of basic white, 8½ by 11 to get started. I have done some die cutting and stamping and some other things just so I don't take a lot of time to show you how to put this together. But once I show you the bones, you'll be able to do whatever you want to. So let's go ahead and start. Grab your paper trimmer. And I'm going to use basic white. You have a choice. You can use whatever color makes you happy. But I'm going to go ahead and use basic white. I just thought it really showed off the different colors that I'm going to add to the card. And because I want to get a very precise measurement on the cut that I'm going to make, I'm going to extend the arm on my trimmer. This is optional, but when I when I have something like this, I really do want to get it very precise. And I find that when I extend that trimmer, it's much more precise. Sometimes cardstock can be a little bit more than 8½ and a little bit more than 11. And I really want to get this right. Okay, so you're going to put your paper in so the 8½ inch side is up at the top. And we're going to slide it over to 7¼ So you're going to cut it to 7¼ on the 8½ inch side. And just go ahead and cut that off. You will end up with an extra piece. And save this. You can use it on a different project. You might even use it on this project for bits and pieces that you'll die cut, or maybe for your sentiment. So what you have at this point is a piece of cardstock that now measures 7¼ by 11. We're going to do some scoring. This is the next step. And we're going to score the entire sheet. So we're going to go all the way from top to bottom. And we're going to score on the 7¼ inch side. And there are only two score lines. And again, we're going to go all the way from the top all the way down. So you're going to end up with a score line that's going to be 11 inches long. And the first score is going to be at 1½. So I'm just going to take it all the way down. I like to get the feel of going straight. So I tend to go back and forth up at the top just for a second. And I'm pulling that all the way down. So that was at 1½. The second score line is at 3. And we're just going to go again all the way down to the bottom. All right. So pretty easy to this point and very, very straightforward. So now I've got a piece of basic white cardstock that is 11 inches long, 7¼ inches wide. And on that 7¼ I scored it at 1½. It's kind of hard to see on camera. but at 1.5 and at 3. This is going to be how we are going to make the card base. So you'll notice that there are some score lines. Well, we just made those score lines. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut the back. And this is super simple. We want the card to end up being 5.5 inches high. So that means grab your paper trimmer again. And this time, when you put the paper in, you're going to put it in on the 11-inch side. It does not matter if you have the score lines at the bottom or the top. Don't worry about that. And you're going to, again, put it in on the 11-inch side and put it over to 5.5. And just cut that. So for all intent and purpose, you're cutting this in half because it's 11 inches long. You're going to cut it in half at 5.5. Choose whatever side you want. You have two that are identical. This is going to be the back of the card. And you can just put that off to the side for right now. So that's the back of the card. We have a piece that is left over. This measures 5.5 by 7.25. And it still has those two score lines. And I'm placing it in my paper trimmer because I'm going to cut this now into 3 pieces, but I'm going to have a little bit left over. I'm going to cut it into 3 pieces, and I want to put it in my paper trimmer on the 5.5-inch side. So those score lines are going to be horizontal, right? So you're going to put it in on the 5.5-inch side, and you're going to cut 3 strips at 1 3/4. So 1 3/4. I'm going to cut 1 strip. Put that over to my left. From the remaining, I'm going to cut another one at 1 3/4. Pull that over to the left. And I've got a little bit left over. I've got 1 3/4 and a bit. And I just want another piece, excuse me, that is 1 3/4 inches wide. So you're going to end up with this little bit of extra. That is definitely not going to be used. You can put that to the side. If you save pieces this small for maybe a scrappy card, go ahead and put that in your stash, but we are not going to be using that. All right, so let's look at what we've got. We have, from our initial 8.5 by 11, we now have 4 pieces of paper. They all measure 7.25 inches wide. This one is 5.5 inches. These 3 are 1 3/4 inches wide. And they all have those 2 score lines. So let me show you where we're going. I'm going to pull the 3 strips out, and we're going to form the back of the card. And this is how you fold it. This is what you want it to end up looking like. So you've got your score line that is on the 1.5-inch mark. So go ahead and fold that back. I'm going to use my bone folder and give that a good burnish. And then on the 3 inches, it's coming in the other way. So you can do just a really simple little accordion fold and burnish that. So this is the back of the card. And it will eventually stand like that. Okay. Now let's grab the 3 pieces that we cut out. And I'd like you to place them so that you have the score lines on the right. I know these are kind of hard to see, but I've got the 2 score lines. One is 3 inches here and one is 1.5 inches. And let me show you an example of where we're going. This is how these need to be folded. So the long edge is going to be coming toward you, and that short little tab is going to be behind. So that means for each of these, we're going to, this is the 1.5 inch, this is the 3 inch, although it's on the right-hand side. I'm going to fold back the one at the 3 inch, and then I'm going to fold toward me the one that's the 1.5. So that's what I want each of those to look like. And I'm just going to burnish each of them so that they look like that. And just kind of prep them. The original that Connie Stewart showed had 4 of these. And I decided I wanted the ones that I put together to only have 3, which meant obviously that the width was a little bit wider. But you will see in just a minute, I think it's a little easier to put together with 3 versus 4. So I am just burnishing these pieces, and then I'm going to dry fit or show you how eventually we're going to put all 4 pieces together to make the card. So I'm just going to kind of stack those 3, put them off to the side. And I'm going to grab the card base, the one in the back. So eventually, we're going to do some decorating, but eventually, this is how they're going to attach. You're going to put one like this at the top. Don't attach them yet. One like this at the bottom. And then one snugged in the middle. And you will have room between the top and the middle and the bottom. So you will have that gap, and that is intentional. But those are the 4 pieces that you use to make the bones of the card. And you can see now, when I bring this in, that that's exactly how this was put together. We do have some decorating to do now, and we're going to do that before we glue the pieces together. All right. Okay. So I'm going to put this sort of off to the side, and let's talk about what you need or what you could use, because there are options to decorate the pieces. You're going to notice that there are 3 pieces. Those are the ones that we cut and we burnished. You're also going to notice that there are 2 additional pieces on the end. I'm going to do the ones in the middle first. And the designer series paper for both of these came from a new collection. It is called Nature Walk. It is absolutely stinking gorgeous, as if any of us need more paper. But I'm sorry, I probably will continue to buy paper. This is part of the Nature Walk suite, which is in the new catalog. It's on pages 38, 39, and also some examples on page 40, 41. There are some other products that I'm going to use as I continue to make this card, but I love the suite. It's really, really pretty. But regardless, it doesn't matter. Use any paper that you want, or stamp your paper if you want to do that. You can come up with your own design. You are going to start with a piece of designer series paper or whatever you're going to use that will initially measure 4 inches wide. It's important to note, let me see if I can shelter that. No, I can't. We'll do it over here. It is 4 inches wide by 4 7/8 inch high. So if you have a pattern and you want to make sure that flowers or whatever it is on your designer series paper, you want to make sure that they look correct when they're on the slats. Make sure that this is the 4 7/8 and your pattern is going up and it's 4 inches wide. Okay, so again, 4 inches by 4 7/8. We're going to cut this into 3 strips because we need to put them on each of the pieces that we just made. Each of those is going to be 4 inches wide, 1 5/8 inch high. All right. So I'm going to get my paper trimmer out again. I'm not trying to insult you, so you can make faces at me if you would like, and that is perfectly fine. I am putting this on with the 4 7/8 inch going up on the top, because each of these needs to be 4 inches wide. Now, 1 5/8, again, I'm not trying to insult you. 1 5/8 is between 1.5 and 1 3/4. So it's right in the middle of 1.5 and 1 3/4. So 1 5/8. And just make sure that the 4 7/8 is in on the top of your paper trimmer. So 1 5/8. Go ahead and cut that. Put it over to the side. 1 5/8 in between 1.5 and 1 3/4, and cut that. And you are going to end up with 3 pieces that are the same width. When you take these pieces off, make sure that you are putting them in the order that they go, because we do want to make sure that the pattern, if you're using designer series paper, and also if you've stamped whatever you're going to use, you want to make sure that the pattern flows correctly. So this is the top, the middle, and the bottom. I am intentionally going to scoot those over because I just want to make sure that I know what the order is that I'm adding these. And I'm going to intentionally now bring in the top. I'll do these in order as well. The top piece, and we're going to add them. We do need to cut these because we're going to be putting part of that designer series paper on one part of our slat, and we're going to put a smaller piece on the other part. So not hard at all. And these need to be cut. I put another little crazy thing together. I will write out better directions, but I thought this might be helpful. So remember that these are 1 5/8 inch high. The side we're going to cut that will end up on the left is going to be 2 5/8. That's all you need to know, because by default, the rest of it is going to be the right size. So I'm going to bring this piece in, grab my paper cutter, and I am just going to put this over at 2 5/8. Again, I'm going to insult your intelligence. So 2 5/8 is between 1/2 and 3/4. So between 2 1/2 and 2 3/4, right in the middle. I'm going to cut that at 2 5/8. I'm going to put these back. While I have my paper trimmer out, I'm going to grab the other ones and do the same thing. So 2 5/8. And I'm going to put these little guys back. And the last one, 2 5/8, between 2 1/2 and 2 3/4. And put them right down. Okay. Whatever kind of adhesive you would like to use, grab. I'm going to start at the top, and here's where we're going. The one that's going to go in between the burnished 1 1/2 and 3 inches is pretty easy to see. It's going to go right in the middle of that area. And then the one that you're going to put on the left-hand side, you're going to put that so that the gap mirrors the gap of the one you're putting on the right, because we want some extra room on the left. The reason is we're going to cover that up with another piece of designer series paper. So I'm going to turn this light on. I apologize if it's too much. It's just going to help me here see a little bit better what I'm doing. And I'm going to intentionally, again, do these kind of one at a time, one strip at a time. And your adhesive of choice. Do a quick and dirty, make sure you've got the right way up. And I'm just putting that in the middle. If it's not perfect, don't worry about it. By the time we get designs on top of this, no one will know. And here's my left piece. The colors in this designer series paper truly are gorgeous. There are a lot of greens and blues, and they work together incredibly well. I'm turning mine because I can do mine better if I'm looking straight ahead. You do however you want to. And all I'm doing here is trying to get about an equal distance from that burnish line. So you can see the white there and the white there, and I'm trying to make it about the same. And again, perfection is incredibly overrated. That's the top one. Now I'm going to grab the middle, and I'm just going to do the exact same thing on all three. So I'm going to grab my middle. I'm going to start on the little piece. I have a lot of Valentine Day themed paper that is old that I have not wanted to cut up because it's so darn pretty. And that's the right way. And I really think that this kind of card would be super, super cool with that kind of paper. I mean, how many heart dies do we have, or flower dies that can make a really cool Valentine Day card? So I think I'm going to make myself feel better and use up some of the paper that I have and make some of these for Valentine's. So here's number 2. And again, I'm not trying to get it overly precise, but you can imagine if this was a designer series paper pattern that had some really fun flowers or words or whatever, you would see a continuation going up the side, which would be kind of cool. And then here's the last one. I do think cards like this are nice to have just so that you know how to make them, and they can be done pretty quickly. All right. And then we have our last piece. And I have seen a lot of these where people do take a piece of white cardstock that would measure what we had initially for this piece of designer series paper and just randomly stamped on it, you know, made their own sort of designer series paper and then cut out the pieces. And it's very, very pretty. A lot of different options for that. You could also, just thinking about it, it'd be kind of fun to take maybe a stamp that had words, happy birthday as an example, and just randomly stamp happy birthday or put it into a Stamparatus or stamp positioning tool and get it all nice and precise. And then you could cut it and layer it up. All right. So these are my 3 pieces, and I've intentionally made sure that I have the designer series paper going in the direction that I want. I'm going to put these over to the side, and I am going to bring in my other card base. And now we're going to attach these to this. Here's where we're going. When we are done, each piece is going to be attached on the left, right in here, and on the right. And each piece is going to be flush with the edge on both sides. The ones at the top and the bottom will also be flush on the top and the bottom. I'm going to put the top on first, the bottom on second. And then the third, I will be able to see where the gap is between the first and the second and the third, and I'm going to try to make the gap the same. I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this, or I will talk through 2 ways to do this. One is that you can put glue here, attach, and then put glue here and attach. The other is you can put glue here and glue here at the same time, and then hold this piece back while you glue everything together. And I will do both of them. So let's first put glue on here. And you only want to put glue on this piece. And you only want to put it where you know you're going to be attaching that other piece of cardstock. So I lay mine next to, I'm laying the strip next to where I'm going to put the glue because that visually shows me where I can put the glue. You don't want a lot. You don't want a lot because it might squish out. You don't want a lot because you don't need a lot. So just a little bit, it's sort of a rectangle. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that down and I'm moving this around so I can see it. And I'm making sure that it is flush against the edge and the edge. And you can also turn it over and just take a peek, but you want it nice and flush. And with this, it's just going to take half a second to set. And then I'm going to add glue on just the bottom side of this, right? Because that's where we know we can put the glue. And again, I'm making a rectangle. I'm not putting a lot of glue on there. There, you can see better because you don't need a lot. And then you can unfold that. Just going to pick up my card base and I'm going to put it right on that edge. And again, I'm making sure that it's flush and flush. And if you want to, you can turn it over and just make sure everything looks good. All right. And if you want, you can go ahead and burnish that just to convince it that it needs to stay. And when you fold it down, it should fold with absolutely no problem. Now, this is where I do a double check. Do I still have everything in the right order? Yes. I am not going to put the middle one on. That's going over to the right. I'm going to work on the one that's here on the right. And I liked the way that that glue works, so I'm just going to keep going. We're just going to do it the same way. I'm going to push this over to the right so I can visually see where I need to put my glue. A little bit of a circle, rectangle, whatever shape that is. Grab this piece, put it so that, again, we're doing the exact same thing. And visually, this is just helpful for me. I'm just turning it so I can feel where those edges are. And then take a peek. Oh, looks good. I'm going to come back over here, flip over that tail, put a little bit of glue there. And you can pick it up or whatever you want to do and just get it right in that corner. All right. I'm going to go ahead and give that a little bit of a burnish. It moves. Glad I had glue on there rather than snail. Just realigning that a little bit. There we go. All right. And I'm just going to make sure it still folds down and it folds down fine. Now we have a really good visual of where the third one is going to go. And I know this is white, so it's a little hard to see on camera, but you can see if your gaps are about the same size. That's what you want to go for. All right. And you're going to attach it the exact same way. What's kind of fun with this is you could also, if you wanted to, you could make the top and the bottom slat a different width than the middle. I think this glue just died. And that would give it a totally different look. You can make each one of them a different size if you wanted to. So there are a lot of different ways to play around with this. And on this one, we're again not going for perfection. So it's just do the best you can and you're going to get it flush with the edge. And then when you're happy with that, and you will have the ability to move this a little bit, I'm going to sort of push this down. That way I can maneuver this piece a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and put my glue and then fold that on over. And get that right at the edge as well. And go ahead and as it's even still, the glue is still drying, go ahead and push that down just to make sure that you can get everything nice and square and folded. And now we've got our little tower. All right. Okay. We're going to cover up these white ends and just give it a little bit more interest. You don't have to. You can do whatever you would like at this point. If you wanted to even continue the designer series paper, you could. You could measure and see how long these pieces need to be and not put the sides in. I tend to like putting the other color in, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to bring in another piece of the designer series paper. This is from the same collection from Nature Walk. And I want two pieces. They're going to be the same width. They are going to start from a piece that measures 2 3/4 inches wide by 5 3/8 inch high. So 2 3/4 inches wide to start, 5 3/8 inch high to start. And then we're going to cut it in half. And that halfway point is at 1 3/8. So again, I am not trying to insult your intelligence, but I will show you where 1 3/8 is. So in your paper trimmer, that is going to be between 1 1/4 and 1 1/2, right in between those two. So 1 3/8, and this is 5 3/8 inch high. So you're going to end up with two pieces. I liked this because it definitely complements the colors that are already on my card. And I'm going to keep them in order. You know, this is how the piece originally was. So I'm going to do this on the left, this one on the right. And all you're going to do is attach so that you have about the same amount of white all the way around, top, bottom, and each side. And I'm going to go ahead and just glue this piece directly on to that side. If you had a piece of designer series paper that had a pattern, you would definitely want to make sure that the height is your 5 3/8 inch measurement. So you would have your pattern going up the card. So right in the middle there. And I'm looking at the white on my right, top, and left. I'm not looking at the white that is toward the darker area, the darker designer series paper. I am going to just turn this on its back and give that a nice little burnish from the back. I just want to make sure that it is not going to move. And then I'm going to put the other piece right over here. And for all intent and purpose, at this point, we have created the card base. I am running out of, wow, 2 of these little dudes. Okay. I'm going to grab this one because I know it's almost full. I've been trying to use up supplies. You will see my pitiful dimensionals in a while because I really want to use up the scraps before I start pulling out anything that is somewhat new. And I had thought that the glue that I brought out had enough to get me through this, but I don't think I was right. Okay, so that's about where I want that. And I'm just going to flip that over also and give that a little bit of a burnish. All right. So we've got our base. Not difficult. And I think it's really kind of cool. Folds down 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then when you open it up, you've got a really, really nice card to work with. I'm going to finish it off pretty much like I did this one in just a second, but just a couple of things. One is if you wanted to, you could cut a piece of cardstock and put it on the back for a place for you to write. You could also just use this area and write your notes. It's not going to be a big deal. The thing is, though, if you go ahead and you put layers of die cuts and things, and then you turn it over and you try to write, you might get some writing that has little bumps in it. So I would recommend if you're going to put your sentiment and your writing on the back, get another sheet of paper, maybe write out first what you're going to say, and then attach it to the back of the card. To finish this card off, I have done a lot of die cutting. I'm not going to use all of these. And I've also done some stamping with my sentiment and some others. I'm just going to show you what I used, and then I'm going to very quickly replicate pretty much what I did here. I'm sure it won't look exactly the same. But I wanted to show you a couple of things, a couple of additional things that are in the suite, the Nature Walk suite. So these are the stamps. I use the You Make Me Smile from that. This is the new packaging from Stampin' Up. I'm definitely getting to like it more and more. What I do miss is not having the stamps stamped, the images, and there are ways to do that. I haven't yet decided on which of the ways, but I will shortly, and I will share that with you. So these are the stamps that come with the suite. And then the dies are really fun and they're different. Yes, they include leaves. They've got two sizes of leaves. These are the leaves I used when I did my die cutting. These ones die cut two of the images in the stamp set. And then you've got these really cool ones that are more like embossing dies. They don't cut, but they emboss. And this one cuts some really cool little holes. So it's almost grunge dies, which I think are super fun. So I did use a couple of these. Like I said, I used this one here to do some of the die cutting. I'll show you those in a minute. And then the little one to do some more of the die cutting. But they were very fun. And then I also used some dies that I've had for a while. These are definitely some of my favorites. These are textured notes dies. And for the sentiment, I stamped with Pretty Peacock onto Old Olive. And then I used the second smallest die to cut this out. I just love the frame that's on that. And I wanted a little bit of a background. So then I used the skinny die and I cut that out of basic white. So I'm going to put this together kind of quickly, and you use the dies that you have. You make this your card or whatever design you are thinking about putting together. I used two-tone cardstock as well when I cut these out. And I think on camera you can kind of see this is the darker tone of Pretty Peacock and the lighter tone. So I used a couple of those. And then I die cut a couple using two-toned Garden Green, which again has two different greens in it, which was kind of fun. I also cut one out using just basic white because I wanted to pull some white in. I think without the white, it would have been a little bit too busy. And then for the little pieces, I actually used leftover designer series paper. When I cut out my initial piece that was 4 inches by 4 7/8, I had a little bit left over. So I cut out some of the smaller pieces of leaves with that designer series paper. So I've got some really fun little pieces to use. And then I also cut out a couple of those in white. But let me show you a couple of just really quick tips, tricks, whatever, when you are going to add some of these dies to the front of the card. And I'm going to put this one here just to talk about it a little bit. Behind here, so right on top of this designer series paper, I put a couple of strips of tear and tape. And the reason I did that is I wanted to start layering down some of the dies. And I just wanted it to hold so that while I was arranging them, I could change my mind but I also knew that it would do a nice job. You don't need a lot. And when you're doing this, think about where you're going to put everything. I'm going to put the sentiment and everything in the middle. So I'm just going to put a couple of pieces of tear and tape kind of right in the middle. And then I'm going to take off the wax paper. And that's going to be my starting point to add some of my dies. I'm also going to cut these. I don't need that entire piece. So I'm just going to snip these right at the bottom, and I'm going to have two pieces now. And I'm going to do that for all of the dies that I cut. And again, you're going to have different dies depending upon what theme you're working on, the colors that you want. You don't need to have a lot. It's really up to you. You don't even need to have dies. You might want to just have the designer series paper or your own stamping sort of shine through behind the scenes. So there are my pieces, and I'm just going to sort of play around. I'm sort of mimicking what I did initially because I want to make sure that some of that white is getting where I want it. So I'm going to put this piece so that it's kind of attached onto that tear and tape. And that's helping me figure out where I want the different pieces to go. And then I'll go ahead and add some others. I'm making sure when I do this that none of those die cuts are going outside the space that I have available for the card. And if I need more tear and tape, I'm just going to put it on top of these and kind of layer it up. And that way, the tear and tape will hold from the top and the bottom as I'm going. And I'm also making sure that I'm keeping that tear and tape right in the middle. All right. And I don't need a lot, just a couple of fun little pieces that are going to work together well. Let's see, maybe I want a smaller piece down here. So I'll go ahead and put that in. Okay. And we'll see. I can build this up later if I want it to have a little bit more. But again, I'm just working on pulling some of the colors in. For me, I wanted to have a little bit of a break in the sentiment, which is why I put the white piece behind. And I am just going to attach that very, very simply by putting some glue in the middle of the white piece and then eyeballing this to try to get it middle. We'll see. And there's some easy ways to align this. There's some designs on either side, and you can sort of try to get it in the middle, and that's close enough. I mean, nobody's going to measure this. So now I have a piece that has a little bit of white on the outside. And now you're going to see how I'm trying to use up supplies. And I'm going to go ahead and put some dimensional pieces on that sentiment and add that onto my card. And then I can tuck some more die cuts underneath if I want to. I want to make sure that I get the sides and one in the middle so the middle doesn't sag. And then I'll put that piece on the front of the card. I don't remember if it was you guys or somebody else that I was in a discussion with about where are the most embarrassing places that you have found little pieces of the wax that you take off your dimensionals. I'm sure you have some, and we can definitely talk about it. I have found them in the refrigerator. I have found them in my underwear.
Oh,
I
no.
have found them all over in the kitchen on the floor. I'm just trying to look left, right, and in the middle, trying to get it in the middle. But oh my word, and my husband now knows the terminology. I'm sure your significant others do too. And they go everywhere. And then you can just, as you want, if you want, you can tuck a couple of different additional pieces wherever makes you happy. I'm not going to bore you to tears by doing all of this. I'm just going to show you a couple of examples, and then we will be just about done with this. But one tip I do have is when you add additional pieces and you've already put in tear and tape and dimensionals and all of that, I don't recommend adding glue, liquid glue, to the pieces that you're going to put in, because there's a very high probability that you're going to get it stuck to something that you really, really, really don't want it to be stuck to, and it will start oozing out, and you will just be a little perturbed at yourself that you allowed that to happen. So I use glue dots at this point, and I can figure out where I can tuck things in, and it's just a lot easier. How do I know? On the one that I made as the example, I used glue, and that is now being covered by an embellishment because it was a disaster. So just adding a couple of little pieces. I'm going to add one more and then I'm going to stop. These are just kind of fun because they were done with designer series paper. So they have a variegated color and it really breaks things up. So I'll just add that one in and then I'll finish this off. These dies are fun and they're very easy to use both with cardstock and designer series paper. There we go. All right. Add one more. And then I'll just talk about the embellishments really, really quickly. So part of the challenge can be finding where you've got that dimensional and convincing the piece of paper that it needs to go to the side of the dimensional. So I might add a little bit later, but I'm happy with that for now. And the embellishments that I'm going to add are two. Let me get these out of the way so that you can see the embellishments a little bit better. This is the top of one of the towers, the stamping pad storage boxes, and I thought that works kind of well for what I wanted. I've got some of these new, these come with the suite. They are called faux bronze pentagons. So I've stuck a couple of those in, and then I also added a few of the Drusi embellishments because I really wanted some bling. So I'm just going to add a few of those in using my little take your pick tool. The faux bronze pentagons are very nice. In terms of weight, they are a little heavy, but they do not have an issue as far as sticking or falling. And I think they're really kind of cool. So I'm just going to tuck a couple of those here and there. Where do I want it? And we'll do one more little one. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of sparkle. And then the card will be done unless I come back and I want to add in a little more in terms of the dies. So I'm just going to pull out a couple of these little juicy elements. Maybe tuck one up underneath a leaf. And I think we definitely need some sparkle up here. I think I like it right there. The only other thing that I did, which I will do after I've really made sure that I am done with this card, is, for example, where this leaf, the only thing that that leaf is attached to is the tear and tape that is under the sentiment. So when I'm super happy with everything that's done, I'm going to put a glue dot right behind that leaf to hold it onto the card. And I'm just going to do kind of a check around to see if there are any places. So I'll probably put a glue dot behind this leaf, behind that leaf, and behind that leaf. And there's still enough three-dimensional sort of way that that die is lying so that it's not all going to just be flat. And you can see that I did that on this card. This leaf is down, that leaf is down, and not all the leaves are down. But there are a couple that I will add glue dots so that they will help the design to stay where it needs to be. So 2 cards made with the exact same process. This one definitely has some more dies than this. I may or may not go back and add in a couple. I probably will. Just tuck in a few. I might even cut down some of these leaves. For example, just use maybe the top 3 on here and pop that into the bottom. So there's a lot of versatility as well. But I really hope that you like this design and give it a shot. It is not hard at all, and it makes some really, really fun cards that I think people will really enjoy receiving. And you can use it for just about any occasion. So until next time, happy stamping.